you need to stop what you're doing right now. Because in the next 48 hours, literally the next 48 hours, something is about to happen that could affect the price of gas in your driveway, the balance in your 401k, and whether or not America is back at war. And I'm not being dramatic. I'm not clickbaiting you. The ceasefire between the United States and Iran expires tonight, and as of this morning, Iran still hasn't confirmed they're coming to the table. Trump just said on live TV, and I quote, "I expect to be bombing. Let that sink in. If you don't watch this entire video, you are going to be blindsided by what's coming." And trust me, the mainstream media is not giving you the full picture. Let's break it all down right now. Okay, let's back up for a second. Because if you haven't been following this closely, you need to understand how we got here. Because this is not just another news cycle. This is the biggest geopolitical event since 9/11, maybe bigger. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched direct military strikes on Iran. The very next day, the Strait of Hormuz, which is that tiny stretch of water in the Persian Gulf that carries 20% of the world's entire oil supply, shut down, gone, closed. The International Energy Agency called it the single largest oil supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Not in recent history, in all of history. Let that register. Within days, oil was spiking past $120 a barrel. Gas prices in America shot above $4 a gallon. Airlines started canceling flights. South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, countries that depend on Persian Gulf energy, went into crisis mode. And here's what most people missed. It wasn't just oil. Helium supplies got disrupted, the same helium that's critical for making semiconductors. Tungsten prices tripled, aluminum surged 8%. The supply chain didn't just get damaged, it got punched in the face. And the death toll. Let's not forget there are real human beings dying in this. Nearly 3,400 people killed inside Iran. Over 2,200 in Lebanon. This is not an abstraction, this is a real war. So then on April 7th, barely an hour before Trump's own deadline to, and I quote, wipe out a whole civilization, the US and Iran agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. Markets went absolutely insane. The Dow jumped over 1,300 points in a single day. The S&P 500 surged 2.5%. Oil dropped over 16% in one session, its biggest single-day fall since 2020. The whole world exhaled. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets really important. The experts were not celebrating, they were warning. JP Morgan said the S&P could keep climbing as euphoria returns to markets. But they also said, we are not out of the woods yet. BCA Research's chief geopolitical strategist Matt Gertken was even blunter. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, fighting will ignite again, possibly before the end of this month. The ceasefire was not peace, it was a timeout, and now that timeout is about to expire. All right. Here's where we are as of right now. Today, April 21st, 2026. The ceasefire officially expires tonight. Wednesday evening, Washington time. Trump this morning said flat out, I expect to be bombing. He told CNBC the US military is raring to go. J.D. Vance is supposed to be flying to Pakistan right now for a second round of peace talks. But here's the problem. Iran has not confirmed they're even sending anyone. Iran's parliamentary speaker said this morning that his country will not negotiate under the shadow of threats, and said they've been preparing new cards on the battlefield. Read that again, new cards on the battlefield. Meanwhile, the US Navy just seized an Iranian cargo ship in the Indian Ocean, on top of another vessel they seized on Sunday. Iran is furious and is vowing retaliation. The Strait of Hormuz? Still not fully open. There are 187 tankers stuck inside the Persian Gulf right now carrying 172 million barrels of oil that can't get out. And Ukraine is still burning in the background. After a brief Easter truce, Russia has ramped up attacks again. Drones hit a hospital in Sumy this morning. 6 people killed across Ukraine just in the past 24 hours. The Russia-North Korea connection just got even tighter. They literally opened a new bridge connecting the two countries today. And Zelensky is saying the peace talks aren't going anywhere. 2 wars, 1 planet, 1 incredibly fragile moment. But wait, I need to tell you about the financial piece, because this is where it gets personal for you. Look, most people watch war news and think, that's terrible, and move on. What they don't realize is that what happens in the Strait of Hormuz in the next 48 hours will show up in their gas station, their grocery bill, their mortgage rate, and their retirement account, whether they're paying attention or not. Here's the deal. When the ceasefire hit 2 weeks ago, markets rallied hard. Oil dropped, stocks soared, treasury yields fell, which dragged mortgage rates down to 6.38%. That was relief. That was the market pricing in peace. Now here's what happens if that ceasefire collapses tonight. Oil experts at Commodity Context are saying a return to conflict could push Brent crude back above $100 a barrel, and potentially higher. The energy crisis never actually ended. Refineries are damaged. Infrastructure is broken. Even in a best-case peace scenario, experts say oil won't return to pre-war levels for a long time. Gas above $4 a gallon is now the new normal, at minimum. Stock markets will crash again. Think about what happened in March. Global stock markets declined, bonds got sold off, interest rate cuts got pushed back because inflation from oil prices is still running hot. The Fed is stuck. They can't cut rates when gas prices are still hammering consumers. That means higher borrowing costs stay with us longer. Your credit card interest, your car loan, your mortgage. And there's something else nobody's talking about. Tungsten, which tripled in price back in March, is used in every single semiconductor, every chip, every phone, every laptop, every electric vehicle. If this war continues, the tech products you're going to buy this holiday season just got way more expensive. And Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Evercore, they've all said the same thing. The inflation shock from this war hasn't fully hit Main Street yet. It's coming. Now let's talk about what the experts are saying could happen next, because this is the part you actually need to hear. Scenario 1, and this is the best case. J.D. Vance lands in Pakistan, Iran's negotiators show up, and they hammer out some kind of preliminary deal tonight before the deadline. If that happens, markets will surge again, oil will drop, and there's a real path toward eventual resolution. But even the optimists say this is a first step, not a finish line. Georgetown professor Mehran Kamrava says there is genuine will from both Washington and Tehran to end this. But the trust deficit is enormous. Every single day of this ceasefire, both sides have accused the other of violations. Scenario 2, and this is where most analysts are actually putting their money. The ceasefire expires with no deal. US military strikes resume on Iran. The Strait of Hormuz gets even more dangerous. Oil spikes back above $100. Stocks crater. And now you have two simultaneous hot wars, a crippled global energy system, and a US president going into midterm elections with gas above $4 and inflation still sticky. That is a nightmare for markets. And it's the scenario that BCA researchers Gertken warned about specifically. He said Trump might ultimately accept Iran as a gatekeeper for oil flows. But after the midterms, the national security establishment will push for something more permanent, meaning this could drag on for months. Scenario 3, the one nobody wants to say out loud, escalation. Iran's military said this morning they have new cards on the battlefield. Nobody knows exactly what that means. But you've got a country that's been bombed for nearly 2 months, that just had 2 ships seized by the US Navy, that's watching a naval blockade absolutely destroying their economy, as Trump put it, and they're being asked to make a deal under a bombing threat. Iran's foreign minister literally blamed the US for insecurity in the Strait of Hormuz in a call with Russia today. And Russia, the other country with a massive war going on, is telling both sides to maintain the ceasefire. When Russia is the voice of de-escalation, you know things are serious. Retired General David Petraeus, one of the most respected military minds in America, said this week that both sides ultimately want a deal. But he also acknowledged the tension is at a knife's edge. The next few hours matter more than anything that's happened in weeks. So what does this mean for you, sitting at home watching this right now? First, your gas prices are not going down anytime soon. Even if a deal is reached tonight, experts say it takes weeks for tanker backlogs to clear, for infrastructure to recover, for prices to normalize. Plan your budget accordingly. The $4 gas isn't a blip. It's a new floor, at minimum. Second, If you're invested in the market, you need to understand what's happening. This is not a normal market moment. This is a market that is being driven minute to minute by geopolitical news. When there's a ceasefire headline, it rockets up. When there's a bombing threat, it falls. Professional traders at places like Thornburg Investments have specifically warned regular investors not to read early market reactions as the final verdict. The volatility isn't over. There will be more wild swings. Third, watch the Strait of Hormuz. I know that sounds weird, but that waterway is the single most important piece of geography on the planet right now. If tankers start moving through it freely again, that's the first real sign that things are stabilizing. If it stays closed or gets more dangerous, everything gets worse. Oil, food prices, inflation, everything. And fourth, watch Ukraine too. Because as this Iran crisis has been dominating headlines, Russia has been quietly pushing harder in Donetsk, hitting civilian targets in Kharkiv and Sumy, and building that bridge to North Korea that gives them a new land supply route. 2 wars, both still hot, both still dangerous. Here's the bottom line, and I'm going to be real with you. Nobody, not the analysts, not the generals, not the White House, and definitely not the media, knows exactly what happens in the next 24 hours. What we do know is this: the world is at an inflection point. The decisions made in a hotel room in Islamabad tonight could change the price of everything you buy, the stability of markets you're invested in, and whether or not American bombs start falling on Tehran again before sunrise. I'm telling you right now, stay informed. Don't let the noise drown out the signal. The signal is this: a ceasefire built on threats was never going to hold forever. Something has to give. Either we get a real framework for peace, which takes time and trust that isn't there yet, or this war picks back up and the economic consequences come home to America hard. This is the moment. This is the 48 hours. And if you were watching this thinking it doesn't affect you, I hope I changed your mind today. You drop a comment and tell me, do you think Iran shows up to the table tonight? I genuinely want to know what you think, and if this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what's actually going on in the world right now, hit that subscribe button, because this is exactly the kind of deep dive, no fluff analysis I do here every single day. We're not here to scare you. We're here to make sure you actually understand what's happening before it hits your front door. Stay sharp. See you in the next one. ये स्क्रिप्ट आज की लेटेस्ट ब्रेकिंग न्यूज पे बेस्ड है। ट्रंप ने आज सुबह खुद CNBC पे कहा कि आई एक्सपेक्ट टू बी बॉम्बिंग अगर डील नहीं हुई CNN। ईरान ने कहा कि वो निगोशिएशंस अंडर द शैडो ऑफ थ्रेट नहीं करेगा, और उसने न्यू कार्ड्स ऑन द बैटलफील्ड तैयार किए हैं NBC न्यूज, और IEA ने इस वॉर को ग्रेटेस्ट ग्लोबल एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी चैलेंज इन हिस्ट्री कहा है विकिपीडिया। फाइनेंशियल एंगल में S&P 500 और सीज फायर पे 2.5% उठा था और डाउ 1.325 पॉइंट्स। NBC न्यूज। लेकिन एक्सपर्ट्स कह रहे हैं कि स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मुज खुलने पर भी ऑयल 80-90 रेंज में ही रहेगा, प्री वॉर लेवल्स पे वापस नहीं आएगा।